This is After the Fire, a series about history after the events. Each season follows the long relationship between two worlds. Between Egypt and Ethiopia, there's never been a single stable border. What existed instead was a long, unsettled frontier, a zone rather than a line. For thousands of years, this space absorbed armies, traders, priests, and migrants, only to rearrange itself again. Power passed through it, paused in it, and often dissolved within it. Here, borders were not drawn once and defended forever. They were lived, negotiated, forgotten, and rediscovered. If this speaks to you, stay with us. Like, subscribe, and tell us what you think. Chapter 1. Nubia as a world in between. For much of ancient history, the land between Egypt and Ethiopia was not a margin. It was Nubia, a world with its own rhythms, kingdoms, and ambitions. Stretching along the Nile through what is now southern Egypt and northern Sudan, Nubia was shaped by the same river as Egypt, but never fully absorbed by it. Egyptian dynasties pushed south repeatedly, driven by the desire to control gold, trade routes, and the Nile itself. Fortresses were built at places like Buin and Semna. Campaigns were recorded in stone. Yet Egyptian control was rarely permanent. At other times, power moved in the opposite direction. Nubian rulers adopted Egyptian religious forms, language, and political symbolism, not as submission, but as strategy. During the 8th century BCE, Kushite kings from Nubia conquered Egypt and ruled it as the 25th dynasty. Pharaohs ruled from the south, restoring temples and presenting themselves as guardians of Egyptian tradition. In these moments, the border did not shift cleanly north or south. It dissolved. Authority followed the river, not a line on a map. Nubia was not merely contested territory. It was a participant, shaping Egypt and being shaped by it in return. Chapter 2. Faith as a substitute for borders. As ancient empires weakened, the nature of the frontier changed. Political authority fragmented, but religious identity grew stronger. Between Egypt and Ethiopia, a chain of Christian Nubian kingdoms emerged. Nubia, Makria, and Alodia. These states occupied the space between two older civilizations and transformed it into something new. Christian Nubia became a buffer world. It maintained close religious ties with Coptic Egypt, while also sharing theological and cultural connections with Christian Ethiopia. Bishops travelled, texts circulated, rituals aligned. For centuries, this shared faith stabilized a frontier that armies had never managed to fix. When Islamic rule spread across Egypt in the 7th century, the border did not collapse. Instead, it adapted. The famous Baqt treaty, signed between Muslim Egypt and Christian Nubia, established a long-term arrangement of peace, trade, and tribute. For generations, this agreement prevented large-scale conquest and allowed Nubia to retain autonomy far longer than many neighbouring regions. Here, the border survived not because it was defended militarily, but because it was negotiated repeatedly. Chapter 3. Lines drawn too late. Modern borders arrived very late in this story. Colonial powers attempted to impose fixed lines on a landscape that had never operated that way. Sudan was carved out as a political unit. Egypt's southern boundary hardened under British administration. Ethiopia, though never colonized, faced pressure from external definitions of territory. These new borders were precise on paper and fragile in practice. Communities continued to move. Trade routes ignored customs posts. Ethnic and religious ties crossed new lines with ease. The older frontier, shaped by river, belief, and habit, persisted beneath the surface of modern states. What had once been a zone of interaction slowly became a zone of tension. The border did not settle. It hardened, and in doing so lost the flexibility that had sustained it for millennia. After the fire of empire, borders did not become clearer. Between Egypt and Ethiopia, they remained restless, shaped by memory rather than law, by movement rather than enforcement. The frontier endured not as a line, but as a condition. Lines can be drawn, but worlds rarely obey them. Stay with us, like, subscribe, and tell us what you think.